It's 7:43 p.m. on a Tuesday. A woman is standing in the checkout line at Kroger, staring at her phone. Her cart holds bread, milk, eggs, the basics. Nothing extravagant. The app on her screen asks a simple question, split into 4 payments. She hesitates, then taps yes for groceries. Not a couch, not a vacation. Groceries. This is Money Moves Daily, and today we're talking about how America started financing its dinner, 4 payments at a time. By now, pay later was supposed to be the friendly alternative to credit cards. Split your purchase, no interest. Simple, right? But something shifted, quietly. Over the past year, BNPL moved from fashion boutiques to grocery aisles, from splurges to survival. And the numbers? The numbers are telling a story that nobody in fintech wants to talk about. Let's rewind. Buy now, pay later exploded during the pandemic. People were stuck at home, shopping online, and BNPL made it easy to click buy without feeling the full hit. Affirm, Klarna, Afterpay, they became household names. The pitch was compelling: split any purchase into 4 interest-free payments. No credit check. Instant approval. It worked beautifully for discretionary spending. Designer bags, electronics, that Peloton you convinced yourself you'd actually use. But here's the thing about financial tools. They don't stay in their lanes. Credit cards started as travel and dining perks. Now people use them for gas and groceries. BNPL is following the same trajectory. Except this time, it's happening faster, much faster. According to LendingTree, 25% of BNPL users are now financing groceries with installment payments. That's up from 14% just 1 year ago. Let that sink in. 1 in 4 people using these apps isn't financing a couch or a vacation. They're financing Tuesday's dinner. And it's not just groceries. PYMNTS reports that BNPL has moved beyond seasonal splurges into utility bills and subscription renewals. The essentials. This isn't a convenience play anymore. When people finance their electricity bill in 4 payments, something deeper is happening. Now, you might be thinking, so what? If people can spread out payments without interest, isn't that just smart budgeting? That's the marketing pitch, and for some people, it's true. But the data tells a different story when we look at who's actually using BNPL for essentials. Here's where it gets concerning. LendingTree found that users who apply BNPL to essential expenses are more likely to pay interest, 32% compared to those using it for discretionary spending at 25%. Think about what that means. The people financing necessities are the ones most likely to miss payments and end up paying fees. It's the opposite of smart budgeting. And the late payment numbers are staggering. 47% of BNPL users have paid late on a loan in the past year. That's up from 41% in 2025. And in 2024, it was 34%. We're watching the late payment rate climb every single year. That's not a blip, it's a trend. So who's driving this shift? Let's talk about generations, because the data here is, well, it's a lot. Among Gen Z BNPL users, 33% are buying groceries with installment payments. That's even higher than the overall average. And here's the alarming part. 57% of Gen Z BNPL users have missed a payment as of early 2026, more than half. According to 24/7 Wall Street, 49% of Gen Z plans to use BNPL for large purchases in 2026, and 36% plan to use it for daily essentials. Daily essentials. Not a laptop for school, not even clothes, the literal basics of daily life. And Fortune reports that Gen Z is carrying $500 more credit card debt than millennials did at the same age, on top of roughly $20,000 in student loans. BNPL sits on top of all that. And here's the kicker, most of it doesn't even show up on credit reports. Unlike credit card debt, BNPL obligations are often invisible to traditional lenders. It's debt that doesn't leave fingerprints. The Richmond Federal Reserve notes that while BNPL's current scale poses limited systemic risk, their words, rapid growth and loan stacking create forward-looking risk exposure. Low in stacking. That's when someone has multiple BNPL loans running simultaneously across different apps for different purchases. It adds up. And because lenders can't see this debt, they can't factor it into approval decisions. Someone could be drowning in BNPL payments and still get approved for a car loan. Global BNPL users are projected to grow from 380 million in 2024 to 670 million by 2028. This isn't slowing down. So what happens when a financial tool designed for discretionary spending becomes essential spending? We're about to find out. Regulation is coming, sort of. FCA oversight of BNPL takes effect in July 2026 in the UK. The US? Still waiting. But regulation won't change the fundamental reality that millions of Americans are financing their groceries because their paychecks don't stretch far enough. The average BNPL transaction started around $50 to $75. Now people are stacking multiple small purchases, a grocery run here, a gas fill up there, into rolling obligations. It's debt by 1,000 cuts, small enough to ignore individually, heavy enough to crush you collectively. So what do you do if this sounds familiar? First, and I want to be careful here because your situation is specific to you, consider tracking all your BNPL obligations in one place. Because they often don't appear on credit reports, you might be carrying more than you realize. Pull everything into a spreadsheet or even just a piece of paper. See the full picture. Here's a question worth asking yourself before any BNPL purchase. Would I buy this if I had to pay the full amount right now? If the answer is no, that might be your signal. If you're using BNPL for groceries or utilities regularly, it may help to treat it as an emergency signal. Not a habit. A warning light on your dashboard. One thing that may be worth exploring, calculate the true annual cost of BNPL late fees versus a credit card with a promotional 0% APR. Sometimes the interest-free option isn't actually the cheapest. And here's the honest version that nobody wants to say out loud. If you're financing groceries because you have to, the problem isn't your payment method. It's your income versus your expenses. BNPL can mask income volatility that might need a different solution entirely. Building even a small emergency fund, and I know that sounds impossible for some people, can break the cycle of installment dependency. Here's what the historical pattern shows, and past performance definitely doesn't predict future results. People who rely on installment payments for essentials tend to fall further behind over time, not catch up. The convenience of small payments becomes the trap of endless payments, and that's by design. Recurring revenue is the whole point for these companies. The PYMNTS data shows millennials are leading the shift to essential spending with BNPL. Gen Z is close behind. Baby boomers, they're mostly still using it for the big discretionary purchases. It's almost like younger generations discovered the debt treadmill earlier than their parents did. Lucky them. If you found this useful, by the way, a like really does help more people find us. And if you want more episodes like this, subscribe. We cover this kind of thing every week. Now, let's talk about what happens next. Because the BNPL industry isn't sitting still. They know essential spending is their growth engine now. The Richmond Fed notes that while current BNPL defaults don't threaten financial stability, rapid growth combined with loan stacking could create systemic exposure down the line. Translation? Right now it's fine, but the trajectory? The trajectory has people in Washington paying attention. There's another wrinkle. The 47% late payment rate we mentioned? That's for all BNPL users. For people financing essentials, you'd expect that number to be even higher. And late fees on BNPL can be steep. Miss a payment on Afterpay and you might get hit with $8 per missed payment, up to 25% of the order value. That $20 grocery run? It could cost you $25, then $30. The interest-free promise disappears the moment you miss a payment. Your situation is specific to you. Your risk tolerance, your income stability, your monthly obligations all change the math. But the pattern we're seeing historically suggests caution with BNPL for essentials. If you're currently using BNPL for groceries, one approach is to set a hard deadline, maybe 60 or 90 days, to transition back to paying full price at checkout. Build toward that deadline with whatever budget adjustments you can make. It may help to treat BNPL like training wheels, useful temporarily, but not meant to be permanent. The Fortune piece notes that Gen Z members are doing many things right with money. They're interested in investing, they're asking questions, they're seeking financial education. But they're still getting burned. The system they've inherited, high housing costs, student debt, stagnant wages, wasn't designed for them to win. BNPL fills the gap that their paychecks can't. And that's the tragedy of this story. BNPL isn't the villain here, it's the symptom. The villain is the gap between what people earn and what life costs. Buy now, pay later promise to democratize finance, to make purchases painless, and for some people, it did exactly that. But for a growing number of Americans, it's become something else entirely. A way to afford groceries today that creates obligations tomorrow. A bridge between paychecks that turns into a permanent crossing. 25% of BNPL users financing groceries, 47% missing payments. This is the new landscape of American household finance, and it doesn't appear on anyone's credit report. This is Money Moves Daily. We'll see you next time. This content is for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute financial advice. Always consult with a qualified financial advisor before making investment decisions. Remember, this content is for informational purposes only and is not financial advice.